Welcome to an expansive life conversation with results architect SANDE GOLGART. Our guest today is Robert Hamilton Owens. Robert is the most interesting triathlete in the world. He has completed 12 Ironman Triathlons. At age 65, he embarked on the 238-mile 300 of Sparta Endurance Race, an 8-day endurance race in Greece to help raise over $315,000 for the families of fallen Navy SEAL contractors who died at Benghazi. Your journey to realignment from fear to freedom starts now. Live an expansive life.
Oh, wow. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of an Expansive Life conversation. Just whenever I think that this can't be any bigger of a discussion, we get an even bigger guest. And I am so thrilled to be able to share the story of Robert Hamilton Owens with all of you today. I can't wait to get into the intro and start this conversation. Robert, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure having you, and I'm so excited to dive into this.
Hey, Sandy, great to see you and glad you had a great weekend.
I had a fantastic. My highlight of the weekend was waking up super early in the morning and realizing you had already finished your marathon.
I said, what are these people doing, man? It's hot. Why don't they get out here when it's cool? Where is everybody?
I know. You've got it figured out. While we were all baking in the heat, you were getting the early jump, right? You were the early bird getting the worm, so to speak.
It was a moment in time when I said, I'm not going to run in that heat. I'm just going to get up at 2 a.m. and it's cool and misty and I'll just knock it out before the sun comes up.
Gosh, starting your running journey at 2 a.m., it never even crossed my mind. Before we get into this, one of the things we always do, Robert, on the show is make sure that we've all fully arrived. So I'm going to lead us through 3 really quick but very important box breathing exercises. So if everyone can join, I'll go ahead and lead us, but we're going to go on a 4 count of inhale. We're going to hold for a count of 4, and then we're going to exhale for a count of 8. And we'll do 3 of those till we've fully arrived, and then we'll jump into the intro and we'll get started on this amazing conversation that I'm looking forward to so much. So if everyone can, again, I'll go ahead and lead us. Take an inhale through the nose for a count of 2, 3, 4, and then hold 2, 3, 4, and then exhale through the mouth 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Second breath in 2, 3, 4, and hold for 2, 3, 4, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one in 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, we have fully arrived, fully present. We all live, these kind of crazy lives where things seem to be going a mile a minute. It's always nice to take the opportunity to arrive and be fully present. And it's always a pleasure anytime I'm in the presence of Robert Hamilton Owens. I had the great opportunity to get to know Robert a year ago. We were at a retreat together in Rhode Island, and he shared this amazing story with the group that I was with. And I just came away completely fascinated with the life that you've led, Robert. And before we get into any more of this introduction, I want to share with the audience an interview that took place early Saturday morning. Jason, if you have that queued up, maybe we can just go to that right away. But we were at an event called Running Man with Jesse Itzler, basically a big track where people show up from all across the world to run enjoy wellness and the company of like-minded people who are looking for, a better, healthier life. And most people start the race at 9 a.m. Well, Robert decided to wake up at 2 a.m., get a jump on everybody, and get his first marathon out of the way before most of us had even gotten out of our tents. But Jason, can you roll that clip if you've got it?
My name is Robert Owens. I'm from Orange County by Disneyland, and I came out here to test my new knee replacement. So I started at 2 in the morning, and it's been great. Knocked out my first marathon. On my second now. Running has grown me. It's developed me. Everything that was said last night. Running is about pressing yourself and doing more than you think you can do, and finding out that 40% is really there. Then there's another level after that, and you only hit it when you get out there. So most people don't want to feel that or know that, but it's there. It's fun.
That was awesome. So for those that don't know, Robert Hamilton Owens, I don't even have time in the hour to list all of your accomplishments, but just to highlight a few, in addition to the one that we mentioned in your intro, 12-time finisher of the Ironman. I know you've done 7 marathons in 7 consecutive days in 7 different countries. You rowed a boat across the Atlantic Ocean to raise awareness for suicide prevention after you lost a dear friend. You did 2 marathons on Saturday, 70 plus years old, and you're someone that Triathlete magazine calls the most interesting triathlete in the world. I could go on and on, but Robert, maybe you can give our audience a little bit of a taste of your background and how you got into doing these hard things that you may not even consider hard, but these extravagant things when seen through the lens of our normal lives just seem so extraordinary.
Great to be here, Sandy. Good to see you again. We all have a story, and we all stumble our way at times through life. And mine started, I was a disabled child in an orphanage. And my parents came and picked up this kid with disabilities. My legs were all bent and my ankles were messed up. And so I didn't learn to run till about 6th grade. And I had a self-worth issue, limiting beliefs that many of us have wrestled with or through or had. And growing up was a challenge. But each time in grammar school and then in junior high and high school, I had teachers or coaches say, Robert, you're really smart, you're really talented. And inside my head, I said, no, that's not true. You don't understand. I'm screwed up. I got issues. And finally, about 20 years of age, I was getting a master's degree in irresponsibility, living in the back of my van, surfing and skiing, had a long ponytail, which back then was different than today. And these pararescue guys, I was lifeguarding the beach in Southern California at the city of San Clemente. And these 2 pararescue guys who were reservists, and if you don't know what pararescue is, it's the Air Force side of the Navy SEALs. We do Navy SEAL training, but we add a year of medical. And so we're combat paramedics who jump in and do rescue work. And it's the defensive side of the military. The Army, Navy, and Marines is offense. They go, make things happen. But there's always one of us in the background that as things get tough, they call on us to go in and rescue them and get them out. So we're a defensive group. And when I was in, there was 200 of us pararescuemen, and there was 3,000 Navy SEALs. So it's the smallest of the specialized special ops communities. And these 2 guys said, hey, Robert, you're gifted, smart, blah, blah, blah. You're blowing your life. Why don't you come into the military during Vietnam? And I said, I've already dodged the draft. Why in the world, now that I'm out, and why would I want to go enlist? And they began to talk to me about the life that they were living and what they were doing. I was a ski patrolman in my teens, and then I was a lifeguard at the beach and rescuing people. And they said big leagues of rescue is getting into pararescue in the Air Force. And it's not really the military. It's just a military job. The only thing military is your haircut. Everything else is pretty much a roll of the dice, and you do stuff and buy your clothes at REI and just you do this Air Force thing. And so I had snakes in my head, as you would say. I wasn't thinking well, and I had fears, lots of them. And these guys made a statement to me, and they said, um, we believe that there's special ops in you. You just don't see it. And I said, and after some pondering, I don't have faith in me, but I have faith in your faith in me. That if you see this in me and I don't see it, I'm going to trust what you see as true. And so I'm going to change my irresponsibility in my life, and I'm going to step into the arena of trusting you guys and let you work with me before I go in. And in essence, they're going to help me break the fears and the failure and the poor self-worth. And they were going to mold me into a guy that when I did go in, I would not wash out nor quit. And so that was a mental transition for me to start thinking differently. I did not know about a mind gym back then. There's physical gyms. We now, as a mental resilience, mental toughness coach that I am, I was never introduced to the mind gym concept, but I knew that everything in my head, I had to cut the wires in my computer and rewire my mind if I was going to come into the things that they saw in me. And I gave myself to that process. At one end, we had a class of over 150, and we graduated 10, plus 6 rollbacks from other classes that had been hurt. And they made me team leader of the 10, or the 16. And they all said to me, my sergeants and things, Owens, you're smart, you're gifted, you're a leader. And again, I had never led at anything, and I'd never won at anything. I was not a stud athlete in high school. I was good for third place, in swimming. I was a swimming water polo player, and I, played some water polo my senior year. But for 3 years, I just was a nice guy trying to fit on a team, and I loved being coached, and I loved the discipline, and I loved the expectation. And so I just began to grow. And so these guys then said to me, all these guys follow you. They watch you. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, really? Because I kept my head down, back of the line, didn't want to look the sergeant in the eye, just be quiet, do my job, stay out of the way, because they pounce on you when you act like you're cocky. And that started a change in my life, but mainly of my thinking. That, why do I have these thoughts in my brain that I was a mistake, left in an orphanage? Why did I have all these thoughts? And I began to grow. And I grew a lot to break out of that self-imposed jail that I'd put myself in, and began to discover that there was far more in me than I had any clue. And also, when you start to get confidence and when you start to get wins, those wins build more confidence and more wins, and you get that ball rolling. And all of a sudden, things begin to change for me, and I changed as a person. So that's sort of my background and my history before doing these things that people think are bizarre or huge. But once you get to change your thinking, and once you begin to hang around people who see the best in you and bring the best out of you and believe in you and call you out and say, hey, you can do this, no, you can do this. Once you get in that group, and like Sandy and I are in a group called the Outliers are people who think outside the box. And I had to learn how to think outside my home and family box, my Southern California box, my disability background box. I had to change my thinking and think bigger than my friends. And had to change friends and got new friends that were believing in big things like I was. So that's pretty much how it started.
That's amazing. I agree too that so much is about who you surround yourself with, right? Sometimes even when we don't see what we're capable of, you might be around a group of people who energetically are just trying to hold you back, trying to keep you familiar, putting the outside expectations, on you. And when you do something that's a little outside of the box, they're like, why would you go do that, man? Just come hang with us. Let's go, drink another beer at the beach. Let's just be okay with kind of hanging out. When you look back on that period of your life when you were sort of crossing this bridge into these more expansive ways of thinking, feeling, and adjusting your patterns, can you think of anything else that sort of triggered something that said, you know what, I am really capable of something much bigger, or maybe something that you didn't think you could do in your training, that once you did it and you finished it, it really ignited a deeper feeling that bigger things were ahead for you?
A fun story was, Robert, if you're going to go in, you're going to do a lot of jumps. And so I said, I got a fear of jumping out of a plane. And they said, well, go deal with it. So I told my parents I was going surfing, and I went to the skydiving place, and I said, hey, I need to go jump out of some planes. And they said, why? I said, I need to break this fear off my life. and,
Wow.
and they said, sure, let's go. So they gave me an hour-long class and took me up in a Cessna 182. And the guy said, I'm going to turn down the engine. You're going to hang your legs out from that side of that plane. You're just going to fall out. And I said, really? And it was at 13,000 feet. And I thought, this is a trip. So I just took a big swallow, and he cut the engine, and I froze. And he turned to me and he looked at me from the pilot seat and said, yeah. And I went, yeah. And it was like the chute goes, poof, poof. And I went, oh man, this is huge. So I just was beside myself, gliding down, and landed, and the plane landed, and they said, how was that? I said, great. Can we go do that again real quick before I get afraid and think about it? And they said, sure. And they put another parachute on me and took me back up. And I was, just thinking, this is the life. I mean, I can do this stuff. And this next time they made me put my foot on a strut outside under the wing, and then grab out on the wing and hold that so I wasn't connected to the fuselage at all, and just hang out there. And he said, I'm going to bump it a bit. So he went up and down, I'm hanging on this plane, and he said, okay, let go. And I went, oh my God. And I went, poof, let go, and all of a sudden the chute opens up again, and I was changed. I mean, like, that fear is broken.
Man.
That thing is gone. So when I got in the military, they sent me to jump school. And all these guys, it was always the first time they'd ever jumped. I said, put me in the front. And so I got the front of the line with all these Army guys and Navy guys and Marines and our pararescue team. And the guy at the door looked at me, and I said, no problem. What do you want me to do? And he goes, you got it? I said, no problem. He said, great, go. And so just jumped out of that thing, with all these guys follow me like you see in the picture. And I said, I've got that win in my life. I can do this. But you got to step into that moment with people or someone, you got to step into a discomfort, a challenging, break those fears. You've got to have the courage to say, I'd rather die than stay stuck in my life. And I'd rather do whatever it takes to break into this new world. There's two people living inside of all of us, maybe more than two. And there's the person that we're living,
Yeah.
and then there's the person on the inside. And the person on the inside is going, help, let me out. I want to live, give me a chance. And the outward person is going, no, that's not what I do, this and that. But you watch other people, and there's another person that says, I wish I could do that. I'm not too old. I'm not too young. I'm not too fat, too skinny. I can do it, And once you get around people that encourage you to live larger, and they love on you and say, come on, you can do this, then you begin to embrace this stuff, and you can't go back to your old friends. You like them, but you know that they're not good for you. And that's really hard if you have a drinking issue or a drug issue, to break away and say, I'm going to go alone. And all my friends thought I lost my mind. When I came back with my beret on and my blouse, boots, and everything, all the people who dogged me, like, what are you doing? That's really stupid. Or we don't see you anymore. Did you get religious, or did you stop drinking, or what'd you do? And I came back, and they looked at me and they said, whoa, dude, I mean, you've really changed. And I went, yep. And they were all envious. but they didn't want to make the jump, and I did. And our worlds changed at that point, and it was never the same.
That's incredible. I feel like going and signing up for a jump myself. Heights has to be one of the biggest fears that people have. Hanging out at 13,000 feet and embracing that jump. I can only imagine, but you've inspired me to want to take that kind of leap. I'm curious.
The fear.
Oh, for sure. And this year has been such a transformative year for me in looking at things that I have judged in my life, even hated for one reason or another, particularly these endurance events. And I realized that anytime there's hate, fear, or judgment, it's all coming from a place of fear. And when I look back and I think, why was I ever judging and hating endurance events? It was a fear. And once I realized, I've never even given it a chance. I've never even tried. I'm going to throw myself in the arena. And not only am I going to do it, but I'm going to do it from a place where I already know that I'm enough. I'm just going to see if I can do it by taking every step joyfully. And it changed all of my perspective, and it forced me to get very present, because I realized you can't be unhappy when you're fully present. When you're in the moment, whatever you're doing, you're alive. And by virtue of being alive, you know that this is it. This is everything. I can't fail, here in the moment, because I'm in it. And that power of presence taught me everything about doing these events. And if you're only thinking about the fact that you get to, not that you have to, take your next step, you can do it joyfully. And it adds up. When we did the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim, I did 110,000 joyful steps.
Mm-hmm.
If I was thinking about all the things I had to do by the time to make it to the end and prove to myself I could do it, I would have had so many doubts and fears, creep in. I would have negotiated myself out and probably, never finished. But that power of being present helped me get over any fear that I had, and just made me realize I can always take one more step.
Yeah.
So how have you learned to move past? Because in this conversation, one of the most common themes with everyone that we brought on is that your best life exists on the other side of your fears. And just crossing that bridge and realizing you have nothing to fear to begin with is like the most important first step to expanding your life, doing something bigger. And once you do something bigger, like hiking the Grand Canyon, you come back and you realize all the hills around you, they pale in comparison to the size of the Grand Canyon. So you're automatically expanding your life. You're making room for other people. You're making room for the way other people think, the way they behave. Nothing bothers you anymore because you've expanded and creating the space to be okay with just about anything. But how have you learned to get to the other side of fear? Because I think one of the things that happens in these conversations is everybody hears, put fear aside, jump in, take the risk. But it's so hard and so difficult to take that first step. What advice do you have based on what you've learned that you can share with the audience?
Well, first of all, as we said, I had to change friends. I had to change my relationships. And that was really hard because I liked them. And I like to drink with them, and I like to party with them, and I like to be responsible with them. And we were buds. And I knew it was going nowhere. And so the difficult decision to say, I want this more than I want to keep my friends. This means more to me than staying with these friends. And that decision, some people had stopped drinking. Well, then I can't see my drinking friends. All right, well, it's worth it to stop, or stop smoking weed, or doing drugs, or stop whatever you have to do that it's not correct or not good for you, or it's inhibiting you. Making a decision that when you make that decision, it's not a sacrifice, it's a joy, because you're choosing to have life. You're choosing to grow. And it's not a sacrifice like, oh, woe is me and suck my thumb. It's, man, I'm doing this because I get to come into something that's better, that frees me up and releases me to be all that I can be. And I have to say that I've probably been leaving friends behind most of my life. Really like them. I say to them, do you want to come with me? You want to try this? You want to do this? No, why would you want to do that? That's stupid. Well, because I can, or you can. And they say, don't, just stay here with us, or be normal, And you just say, I can't be normal anymore. I have dreams and desires I want to come into. And you have to, every time you go to another level in life, you leave friends behind because they don't want you to grow, because that puts guilt on them. That they should be growing too, but they don't want to pay the price. So that kind of a thing. And then learning that there's a whole nother side beyond my natural thinking. I really believe that we should think about our thinking. And most people don't think about their thinking, they just think. And whatever's in their head, they just think it's what's in their head. But when you grow, you learn to observe your thinking and ask, why are those thoughts roaming around in your head? And so the way I picture it is that when I was born, I may have had some issues coming out of the womb that caused me to be dumped off in this hospital and then this orphanage. But by and large, my head was pretty empty. And then life begins to come. And when it does, people say things and you feel things. And all of a sudden, this brain of yours, which is sort of like I say, a vacant lot, begins to be filled in with thoughts or things that people have said. And your vacant lot begins to grow with the stuff that you ingest in your environment. And pretty soon, those thoughts that are in your head, they may not be your thoughts. They're thoughts that have just grown in your head from things that you've heard from others. And pretty soon, you say, well, how long have you been thinking like that? All my life. Culture, age, background, country. Why do you think like that? Well, that's how we think. Well, why? Where'd those come from? And I say, I don't know. They've always been there. And then you say, well, are those your thoughts or thoughts that have just always been there? Well, the thoughts have always been there. And, well, why don't you change your thinking? It's called neuroplasticity. And why don't you program your brain the way you program going into a gym and work? If you can work out your muscles, why can't you work out the biggest muscle, which is your brain? And if you're gonna work on your health and your fitness, or you're gonna work on your outside person, then why don't you also take your brain on as a muscle as well that can be developed and grown, just like your bicep? And when that revelation of thinking about my thinking, becoming an observer, it's called the witness in Eastern thought, but there's a witness inside of you that watches the way you think or behave. And it's outside of you and it goes, why are you doing that? And it talks to you like, I'm doing this, but there's another person saying up here, why are you doing that? And once you begin to think about your thinking, and then you know that there's bad thinking that's in your head, then you choose to make the adjustments to say, I reject those thoughts. I don't know where they lived or how they got in my vacant lot, but they've grown into bushes and trees. And now somebody has to go bzz, bzz, dig them and cut them out and reprogram with the right thinking. And once I learned to try to reprogram my brain with right thinking versus just the stuff that just lives in my head, all of a sudden I went, aha, I can break these things. I can break the stuff off of me. Another perspective I use is like, when I wake up every day, this world is positive and it's full of miracles and all kinds of good things can happen. And then every day I put my glasses on and I view the world through these glasses. And I see it through my world and I dumb it down to my world view. Take the glasses off, I can do anything. Put the glasses on, oh no, you don't understand, you can't do it. And every morning, if you aren't careful, you put on those glasses that dumb down your thinking and dumb down your world. And we all do, it's called culture. So if you can take those glasses off and say, I can do anything. I mean, why can't I step into this or try this or do this? Well, because my glasses say I shouldn't, or my friends have built this weed patch in my head, and I have to pull the weeds out so I can get into this thing. And that whole revelation set me free to then try to rewire my brain with there's nothing impossible. I mean, I may not be an opera singer, but I can change this. I can grow and I can come into, and that set me free.
I love that. I mean, I think this ties back to something we started discussing in the beginning. When fear is part of the equation, our brains want to seek the known, right? And the known is that stuff that we've put in that vacant lot. It's like, well, I know this from my past. I know this because I've experienced it. But those are all looking backwards. And what you're describing to me is the things I'm familiar with, which can be very limiting, but they give us this piece of comfort that at least I know how this is going to end, even if it's not the best for me, it's familiar. And what I think you're describing, at least from what I'm getting from it, is being so much more welcoming with the idea that we don't know and that the unknown has uh, far more possibilities than the known. And taking those glasses off and saying, I'm going to forget what I know, realize that I don't know, and I'm going to welcome in this idea that life could be so much more fascinating if I just embrace the unknown for a minute and be more open to the unknown. And maybe I could jump out of a plane. Maybe I could row a boat across the Atlantic. Maybe I could do 7 marathons in 7 days. Maybe I could compete in a triathlon, even though I don't own a bike. All those things that you have done just by embracing the unknown. What's there for you when you start thinking about the unknown? And what are you, at this stage of your life, what are you passionately curious about and passionately pursuing in the unknown today?
Let me just back up and say, I went to college 4 times, and I flunked or quit 4 times because I just didn't think I was smart. My dad was a Phi Beta Kappa out of Stanford, never got a B in his life. My mom was a Phi Beta Kappa out of UCLA. My sister was a 4 out of USC, and she was adopted also before me. And then there was me. And I got a 2.0 barely through high school. And the first 4 times I went to school, my head was just full of snakes. I had that weed patch growing in my head. After I got out of the military, I had this confidence like, what's the big deal? So I went back to college for the 5th time. And my parents said, are you sure you want to go back a 5th time? And I went, yeah, I got it. No problem. And they said, oh, okay, see ya. And I went to college, and got all A's and B's. And it was easy this time once I had my head on straight. It was
Wow.
like I just had to change my thinking. I went up to, smart girls and said, how come you get straight A's and I struggle so much? And they said, you don't know how to study. I said, well, how do you study? And they said, like this. Why don't you join us? We have a study group. I did exactly what they said, and I got A's. And I said, this is no fair. I mean, you know what you're doing. You didn't know what you're doing. You thought you were dumb. You were dumb. You just didn't know what to do. And you just begin to grow, and you begin to ask questions and hang around the right kind of people and ask for help. And, you just begin to change. You asked me about the unknown. Now, I'm trying to be more reasonable. I, I, I've been known for being out there a bit. Like I want to just. I got years of confidence now of trying things that are. People said you can't. I know. Anyway, this weekend, the longest run I'd done was an hour on a treadmill. And I have this knee replacement, so it's all metal, and it doesn't do well on concrete. It doesn't do well on asphalt. It's all metal, and Anyway, so I thought, well, I wonder what I could do. I'm training with 1 hour on this treadmill because it's easy, it's softer on the heel toe versus
Sure.
knee. So I showed up for this thing thinking, I'd like to do a double marathon. I wonder if I could pull that off, having only run an hour at the most at a time. But I had done enough stuff to figure out how to breathe my way through and how to do the run walk thing. And so when I was out there running, I was having the time of my life because I was taking on myself with the challenge, with the knowledge that I have for how to overcome difficult things. And so when I did 40 miles and I'd only done an hour run before, I went, I think these years of experience are still paying dividends. And I was so excited just to see that I could take myself on and break the curse of no, you can't, don't even try, you're old. and and for the listener out there, what I really hope for you is that A, you'll believe what we're saying, and B, that you'll find the right people to help you start getting wins, and C, you'll begin to challenge yourself, as Sandy's been doing in this last year, to do things that seem difficult for you, but do them with people who will encourage you and show you how to do it so you can develop these I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I'm going to try. And then those things will build win and confidence, win and confidence. And all I can say about me is that I have 50 years of practicing this stuff and developing a mind gym and then doing things like rowing across the Atlantic, or like when the Ironman came out. I was in college that fifth time, and it was a beer drinking thing, by Navy SEALs, and it was brand new in Sports Illustrated. And I read that thing, and they said only crazy people would try this. And I read that thing, and I said, I can do that. And all these guys in my dorm at college said, "What are you talking about? That's for stupid, crazy people." I said, "Nah, I can do that. You haven't been through. Been through." And so I went and did Ironman number 3, 47 years ago, 46 years ago, on a borrowed bike, as I said, and I figured it out because of the stuff I'd grown into through the special ops community and training. And the listener out there, you can do the same thing. You can grow and take on things and find the right people, and you can make a difference. And people will say, "What happened to you?" And you'll go, "Oh, you'll never believe what happened to me. I lost 100 pounds, or I did such and such." And you'll be amazed at the new creation that's inside of you that wants to go, "Let me out." It really will come out. And this
Yeah.
podcast that Sandy's doing is week after week reminding you that it's your choice the way you're living. It's your choice. You've made decisions, and you're living the decisions you've made, for better, for worse, for richer, poor, sickness, and health. You've made decisions, and you are the sum total of a lot of your decisions. But you can make those adjustments, and you can begin to change, and you can begin to grow. And for the future, for me, I don't know. I'm glad to be through 40 miles at 73 years old. This last weekend, I gave myself a high five, and I went, "Bada bing, you're still in the game, dude."
Yeah.
It was just fun.
Most people, would test their new knee, like by walking around Balboa Island, right? And seeing if they could stay on it, for longer than an hour. You go out to Running Man with all these elite athletes and jump on the track at 2 a.m. and run 40 miles. It's just so impressive and so fun to be around you and your energy. And I think one of the things that I've gotten from you and Joe Jacoby and Jesse Itzler, Chris Hoth, all these amazing people that have sort of come into my life is when you start to change your circle, the energy changes.
That's right.
And you have people who are pulling you towards your best self, not criticizing you.
That's
And you
right.
see that you're leaving behind people who want to shame, they kind of want you to feel bad about the new self that you're becoming, or maybe remind you of old stumbles that you've had. And I get around people like you and Jesse Itzler and there's so many dozens of people in the Adventure Club, people in the Outlier Project. Not one of them is ever trying to hold you back. They're all pushing and pulling you to new levels and encouraging you to, of course, then go explore a new version of yourself. You could do even more. And then you realize at some point a switch flips that has you realizing your higher self is the best friend that you need. And you realize it's been talking to me my whole life, encouraging me to remember, not discover, but remember that you are this boundless, limitless soul that came into this human existence, and go explore that further and elevate yourself. So I totally resonate with that idea that, you do have to say goodbye or set self-respecting boundaries when it comes to people trying to shame you or hold you back or question how anything could be possible, and really attach yourself and introduce yourself to these new versions of you, and not be afraid of killing off those old versions that attracted those people into your circle. Welcome the death, if people can get their mind around that, of killing off these old identities that attracted people who were wanting to shame you, and welcome in this new version of you, and constantly reintroduce these newer versions. I feel like I've gone through 40 different new versions of myself just in the last year.
You
For the
have.
previous 30, I was this one version, convinced that I knew a lot, convinced that I knew how it worked, and living in such a limited capacity, afraid of the unknown. Once I just got a little taste and a little appetite, I can't get enough now. It's like I just want to keep going up and up and up and bigger and bigger and bigger, not because my ego needs it, because I'm seeing these things are possible. And why wouldn't you want to experience life that way?
We've all watched you grow. We've all said, look at Sandy. Look at what he's doing this time. And we're all going, bada bing, go Sandy, go, just
Yeah.
keep moving into these new places. But again, the people you surround yourself with have energy, and they will pull on you. And it's hard to resist the positivity with your negativity. There's a time when you finally cave in and say, I'm going to believe your positivity. I'm going to go hang out just to get it on me and watch. And that energy will pull you into new worlds, new places, new situations, new living, new thinking. But if you're hanging out with negative people, and let me just say, I don't say this for any other reason, just you'll get it. I don't spend any time with people my age.
Hmm.
None. Why? Because they want to ask me what medications I'm on. They say, I'm looking at them, and they're just out of shape, and they're drinking too much, and they're eating, and you know they say, hi Robert. I say, hi, and they go, what are you doing? Are you still doing that crazy stuff? I said, oh yeah. And I go, how's it going for you? Oh, this heart attack, or this diabetes, or this or that, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, this and that. And I just say to him, you can change that. Do you want to change that? Would you like to change it? I don't know. I had one guy put his hands on his big fat belly and said, I got a lot of money invested in this thing. And I know I'd hate to screw that up. I mean, there's a lot of wine. There's a lot of good food buried in that thing. Maybe that's why you can't breathe going upstairs. And if you want to change, I'm happy to encourage you. But if you really like that big fat belly, then knock yourself out. And he just stares at you and went back to his big fat belly. So
Yeah.
I spend time around people that are encouraging, and I don't spend time around anybody that's negative. I don't have to anymore. I mean, I get to say hi to them, and I get to say, how are you doing? This and that, but I don't let them in my spirit anymore. I don't. I have my boundaries up, and I say it's like, I like you. I've had enough of you. Thank you.
Yeah, for
I,
sure.
I guard this, and I guard this. That I did a lot of work to get all you people out of here, and I don't need that stuff coming back into my life. I want to live free, and thinking and positive, and with people that'll always see the best in me and encourage me and stimulate me. So when I go to the gym, I have, when I used to go to my CrossFit all the time, and these young people would say, "Come on, Mr. Owens, you not do another rep." And I'd go, "That's right, I can." And these people would pull out of me, the stuff that if I stuck with my age group or I stuck with the people like in this neighborhood, I'd never be free. I'd be stuck living in that little swirl going down the toilet hole. It's just, you have to break.
Yeah. Yeah. A saying that I picked up over the past year, two of them that have really helped me whenever I need, a little bit of encouragement, or I find myself judging or complaining about anything is, if you're not changing yourself, you're choosing. And so if you've chosen to hang out with certain groups of people, you've chosen to kind of plateau, you've lost the ability to complain about it because you chose it. It was your choice. Or you can change it and become something more, or open to and allow more to come in. And the second one is something that Jesse references a lot, which is, I didn't come this far to only come this far. So every time I feel like I'm bumping up against a plateau or something, and I think, about how amazing life really is. And it's not that it's going to be amazing. It's amazing right now. The amount of miracles that happen just in waking up and being here, being with you, having Jason run this from Colombia, you in Southern California, me in Seattle. There's just so much to be thankful, so much to be grateful for, that I didn't come this far to only come this far. Let me go see what else I can allow in by creating the space. And by creating the space, I just have to expand myself further and further and allow more great things to come into my life and make room for it.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, I want to invite the audience that's listening, because it's such a fascinating opportunity we have with you for the next 15 minutes. If you have a question, you're listening to Robert, his story. Hopefully he'll get into this amazing accomplishment of over 40 days out on the Atlantic Ocean, where he rowed a boat with 11 other people, I believe it was. If you have a question, you have something coming up for you, or you just want the amazing opportunity of interacting with Robert, I encourage you to throw a question in the chat. Raise your hand. We can bring you on stage, on camera. But if you have something that you'd like to throw out, please don't be bashful. Move to the other side of fear and jump in the conversation and expand your own life a little bit. But with that, Robert, can you tell us a little bit about this adventure? Because I think probably the one that so few of us can relate to is rowing a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. How that came about, some of the challenges that you guys faced. I know the story, but I just am fascinated by all the things you guys had to prepare for and then encounter, pivot, do all those things to finally see your way all the way across the Atlantic Ocean.
One of the mantras that I have that I put in front of me, like you've been saying about yours, is, what am I capable of? Not how old am I?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
What am I capable of? Well, I'm probably capable of a lot of stuff. I just don't think about it or don't do it. But if it gave me $1 million, sure, I'd probably become real capable real quick. And so as some of you do know or don't know, that I train Navy SEAL candidates and Air Force Special Warfare guys. And I work with 18 to 30-year-olds when I wasn't, and not a business consultant or a coach or speaking places. And for 7 years, I've been working, and it's not going anymore, but there was a place called SEALFIT. And SEALFIT was a CrossFit gym designed for Navy SEAL training above Coronado. And so I'd work with these young kids. The guy was a Navy SEAL guy, and I times years. And then on Sunday, okay.
Yeah, no problem. think we have a connectivity issue. But it looks like Andy Emerson may have a question. Let's ask him. Andy, do you have a question, or would you like to join us on stage? You can type in the chat.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, he's back.
I went dead, and I said, "What happened to our connection?" So I stood up and went outside.
All right. Well, you're back. It's great to have you back. So yeah, it was starting to cut out a little bit as you were explaining the experience of rowing across the ocean.
Yeah, I did that for a veteran suicide prevention thing because a friend of mine, a Navy SEAL senior master chief that I coached with at SEAL Fit, training Navy SEAL candidates and Air Force Special Warfare Rangers and stuff. I worked with him on a Sunday afternoon, and he went home and blew his head off. And he was not drinking heavy, but he had 14 deployments, and he had a lot of stuff buried in his head. And they teach you how to stuff it, to go through these hard things, but they don't teach you how to let it out little by little. And he had a bad time for some reason, and went home and got on his bicycle and rode up on a hill above San Diego and blew his head off. And so I wanted to do something for our vets of all the branches that have to do with suicide. So that was something I wanted to do to hop in further. And then second of all, when I was running the 777, 7 marathon, 7 days of a contest, this guy said, and when you hang out in that group, like we did this weekend, you meet people that will stimulate you to do things you wouldn't normally do. They come up with ideas. And this guy said, hey, if you really like doing this, why don't you row across the Atlantic Ocean? And I said, I don't know. I mean, can't imagine doing such a thing. Can you guys still hear me? Good?
Yes. Yeah.
And so the guy said, if you really want an adventure, why don't you go ahead and row across the Atlantic? And I said, I'll row across the Atlantic and raise money for veteran suicide. There's a race every year. It starts in December after the hurricane season, starts with the Canary Islands. It's called the Talisker Whiskey, which is a Scotch whiskey, high-end Scotch whiskey. The Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Row. And there's probably 30, 40, 50 boats that take off and go across the Atlantic. There's singles, and there's two-man boats, pairs, and there's fours, and then there's fours with a fifth. There's all kinds of boats. And there's mixed boats. There's handicap boats. There's Navy SEAL boats. Anybody who wants a challenge, we'll try this, And so I was hearing about that, and they said, why don't you go on this 12-man boat, which means 3 guys row on the left and 3 guys row on the right. And then there's guys in the back sleeping and guys in the front sleeping. So 3 rotate all the way around, and you row 3 hours, you're off 3 hours, you row 3 hours, you're off 3 hours for 43 days. And it was 3,100 miles. And being a mental resilience coach, I wanted to try the mental resilience stuff on me to see how I would do being sleep deprived for 43 days. And it worked out real well. That got on a team, and I was the only American on a European team. I was the oldest American to ever do this, which sort of added on. And all the people I told back here, of course, would they say, that's stupid. You're too old to do that. And when they said I was too old, game on. And so I said, I'll take that as a badge, and let's go. So got on this team, and it was a wild experience. We got some really big waves. We were out in our first storm, and we told the guys behind us, we weren't racing because we had the only boat that was a 12-person boat. So we weren't racing anybody. But we told the people following us, there's a big storm out there, be careful. And these waves are so big, they broke 2 of the boats in half. Just broke out of, and we got through that storm, and I got dragged out in the ocean on a rope and just trailing underwater, hanging by my ankle, underwater going, wow, this is an adventure.
Yeah, I'll say.
But anyway, I got what I paid for. Anyway, it was a great fundraiser, and it was a great experience for me to be this American on this European team. And I was an ocean guy. Most of them weren't ocean people the way I was an ocean person. And so we knocked out 43 days. And, it's always a life-changing experience, especially when you watch people lose control. They lose mental control. when fear comes, and they lose mental control when they face things they've never faced before. And these folks were not ocean people. These folks were rivers and reservoirs and lakes rowers. They had never been out in the big seas, and I had. And to watch them morph under pressure was just a real interesting experience. But anyway, got through that, got off the other side, gave my wife a hug and my daughter a hug, and they said, please don't do something like that again. So when you ask me what's beyond, what's the next step into beyond thing, I'm trying to be reasonable, and I'm trying to stay married, and I'm trying to be thinking about others besides myself.
Right.
And so those questions always come up. What's the next one? I really can't talk much about it because I'll get in trouble.
Right. I mean, that's just so hard for me to imagine being confined to this boat where you're living on this tiny little vessel that houses 12 people. You're rotating 3 different sections and just doing that continuously for 43 days. I can only imagine the mental fortitude, how important it is to just be present. It's hard to think 40 days ahead. You know, when the first storm hits, you watch other boats break, you watch you go over the side, have to get back on. Like, it's just so much to deal with, but the power of being present and just having the mental fortitude to stick it out, and just all you've got is the next row. You do that enough, you'll get through it.
Yeah, you have 2 night rows and you have 2 day rows. And what happens is that night row, that's when you start hallucinating and seeing things. And these waves come and you can hear them, but you can't see them because there's no moon out sometimes.
Oh, sure.
And so you just go, here it comes. And they're 3-story waves, maybe even a little bit bigger than that. And they just crest, and you just hope they don't break straight on you. They crest under you or something. And it was an adventure for sure, and not everybody should do that. But I tell you, Sandy, you keep getting wins, you'll be surprised at the things that you'll do. You'll say, I could do stuff that I didn't think I could do, and you're going into the zone, Sandy. That's going to be pretty fun. And for the listeners out there, getting these wins is a huge thing. But it gives you confidence to do things that other people say are crazy. So I've been doing crazy things now for 50 years. And it's not crazy anymore. It's just normal to be able to say, I can go back to college, or I can learn a language, or I can lose weight, or I can train for something. You become normal thinking what other people can't think. And you're not trying to be egocentric or weird. You say, you guys are stuck, and I'm not stuck. I'm alive.
Yeah. Well, I can feel it already just being around people in the adventure club, through Jesse Itzler and his team, through the Outlier Project, and other people that I've met and welcomed and allowed into my life over the last year. They're already doing these amazing things. Dr. John, the guy that I met who lives in Vail, Colorado. Right now, he's on a trek from Canada to Mexico with Mike Posner. And Jesse's done these rides across the U.S. And, there's always something coming up. We did the 29029 event, and the people that I met there are all talking about doing something else, taking it to another level of possibility, and just opening up more and more possibility for what can be done. And then your curiosity kind of gets the best of you and says, I'd really love to figure that out. And I remember that distinctly happening in the Grand Canyon, where in a lot of events and a lot of times in my life, when I'm doing something difficult, I wanted to get through it. It's like you want to get to the finish line. When you're in a place as beautiful as the Grand Canyon, where you have this amazing masculine and feminine energy coming together, it's Mother Earth kind of holding you in her arms. I didn't want to leave. I was like, I'm in no hurry to get out of here. I just want to be here, take this in as fully as I can for the 20 hours I'm going to be in the Grand Canyon, and remember every minute of it with these amazing people that I'm with. And that's kind of what life is becoming, for me. So I think I agree with you. The more people that I've met, the bigger the opportunities that are coming my way. And it's just fun to show up, be fully present, and kind of let life's energy take you where you're meant to go, and just enjoy the ride.
Most of the things that I have done, I've stumbled into. It
Isn't
wasn't
that
like
amazing?
I just got around somebody who suggested something, and I go to bed at night thinking, "Wow, I wonder if I could do that." You know,
Yeah.
like you're
You
trying to
know,
be out there.
my journey started with one quote from Rumi, where he said, "When I chase after what I think I want, my life becomes a furnace of stress and anxiety. But when I sit in silence, I realize that what I want also wants me. It's looking for me and it will find me." And I just felt like a vibration in my heart that said, I've got to figure out what that actually means. And as I've sat in silence, I've dissolved some of the limitations, constraints in my own head. It's just opened up and allowed so many amazing people to come in. And then lo and behold, these things that are meant for you start finding you, and you don't really have to chase them. They will find you.
That's really true. And so, for
Yeah.
all your listeners out there, because Sandy and I have been talking, and I just wonder what you're thinking. We hope today that you'll be encouraged. We hope today that you'll be strengthened to say, "Gosh, I've had this excuse for so long. Um, I'm going to find the right kind of people to hang around to help me get through this kind of stuff." Like Sandy's done. He keeps bumping into more and more people that keep pulling more and more out of him with their energy or their words. And to all of you that are watching, there's another life for you too. And you can have it. It just means you have to look in the mirror and say, "I'll take the step. I'll take the step wherever to call, to go, to read, to do." Um, but you can do it as well. We're just not two guys out here that you listen to and you go, "Wow, we're just like you." But we made those decisions. And we would really like it, I would especially like it, if you would write Sandy and say to Sandy, "Sandy, this is what I got out of this podcast. And these are the three things that I took away from this podcast. And I want to tell you, Sandy, why I come to your podcast and what I get out of it." And Sandy really needs to know what it is why you choose this hour and why you choose to come back and what you're getting out of it so he can continue to program stuff just for you. And it's important to us that we can hear from you and find out, your takeaways. And we'd be happy to share more. I'm sure that the next guest will stir something up in you, and I hope I've stirred up something in you, and Sandy stirred up something in you, and you won't be the same when you get done with this podcast. You'll take those risks that you need to take and find those people, and you'll make little adjustments and begin to grow. And not that we're going away right this moment, but it's important that we know how to encourage you. It would be great if you'd let us know.
Yeah. And also if you share any place where you feel like you're stuck
Yeah.
and want help with getting unstuck, because we've all been there. We're all human. It's just a part of our existence to be stuck and not be totally free. And I think this is part of the aim, is to create a community where people can be free. They can let go of some of their limitations, like asking for help, and just simply start living. And when you have people like Robert, they're willing to raise his hand and say, "Reach out. I'm happy to help you." My only advice is take it. Reach out.
Maybe you should label this podcast "Unstuck."
Unstuck. Yeah. Well, I think that, what I love about the expansive life is so many people are trying to pack in more to their existing life. And to lead a really, truly expansive life, one of the things I've learned is you have to make space for it. You have to make space so that you can expand into it, which means getting rid of the things in your life that aren't serving you and dropping them. You mentioned that, your close inner circle. If you want a better, more supportive, more powerful, energized inner circle, you do have to drop out the current inner circle to make room and expand into that. And same with your fears, same with your limited constraints. But I did see that Kevin joined, and I want to be mindful. I love the interaction from the outside, but Kevin, if you have anything, if you're here and you'd like to join to ask a question, let us know. We can throw you up on stage with us. If you're just here joining and you just want to wave, you could do that as well. But we're very close to having to sign off, but I want to give that last opportunity. And I can't see a last name, otherwise I could take a guess at which Kevin this is. Okay, I think all right, Jason, I may have messed that up. Okay. Well, with that, we will go ahead and close off. I want to thank everybody for taking this hour. It's not lost on me that how valuable everybody's time is. The fact that you took the time to, one point over 2,000 people checked in to listen. So thank you for trusting us with your time. I hope you got tremendous value out of it. Robert, thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to share your life experience, the things that you've learned along the way, and some of the examples from the expansive life that you're living with our viewers. And thank you so much for being open to having our audience reach out to you and, ask for some encouragement or some help.
Sandy, do the people know how to get a hold of you?
They can always get a hold of me at sandegolgart.com, or you can find me at LinkedIn. I'm the only Sandy Golgart, I think, in the universe. So those are the two easiest ways. But you can also sign up on my website at sandegolgart.com for a free consultation for 30 minutes to explore what's currently going on and where you would ultimately like to go, and how we can move to the other side of your biggest fear, your biggest limiting constraint.
If they would like to talk to me, if I can encourage them in some way.
Yeah, please.
My email is my name, Robert Owens, but Owens has two S's. I did that for my kids a long time ago. Too many Robert Owens. Robert Owens with a double S at Yahoo or Gmail. And my website is Robert Hamilton Owens, like the stage play Hamilton, roberthamiltonowens.com. And I'll go even further. My phone number is 949 542 9600. 949 542 9600. And I get phone calls from all over the world. Hey, Robert, And I say, yeah, where'd you hear what? And we talk. So Sandy and I would be happy to encourage you somehow if that's what you'd like. So reach out, don't stay stuck, and live the expansive life.
Yeah. Robert, thank you so much for sharing with us, especially your time today. Best of luck to you. I look forward to seeing you the next time I'm down in Southern California.
I just got to say, it was great to see you out there running, Sandy. It warmed my heart. Your face was so red. And I thought, look at Sandy. He's knocking this thing out.
I'm not built for that kind of heat. I think it reached 92 degrees on that track. I were many trips to the cold plunge to dunk my head just to stay in the game.
Oh, man, I said that's stupid. I'm not going to go out there and do that. I'm going to go all night.
See, I'm going to hang around with you more often and get my runs in at 2 a.m. so I don't have to go through that middle of the day heat again.
Let me just say this. So one of the outliers came up to me and said, what are you doing? And by this time, I'm not running. I am walking slow. And they said, are you okay? And I said, oh, yeah, I've just been out here a while. And they said, what did you do? I said, well, I got up at 2 o'clock. And they said, well, you can't do that. The race started at 9. And I went, I'm not racing. And they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm out here for distance. I'm out here to see how far I can go. Oh, so I don't have to run with you guys. I don't have to race with you guys. I came here to do my thing, on my time. And I said, why didn't you come out and run with me in the cold? And she said, this was really key. She said, I guess I'm in the herd mentality to do just whatever I'm told. And I said, the herd mentality will keep you folks out at 91 degree heat out here and not question it. And to think outside the box as an outlier, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. I'm going to run when it's cool. And so she just looked at me and said, I don't think like that. And I go, I know it took a long time for me to think like that too, but you just got to there must be a better way to do this. And 91 degrees and 78% humidity. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway,
next time I'm packing my headlamp and I'll be out there with you on the track.
Next year.
Yeah.
All right,
Robert. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for joining us. It's a pleasure chatting with you. I hope you found value in today's show. As Robert mentioned, can reach out to me at sandy@sandegolgart.com is my email. Let us know what you got out of the show, what you'd like to see moving forward. We value your opinion, your feedback, and we'll do everything we can to make sure you're getting the most value out of the show moving forward. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for watching an Expansive Life Conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.